How can you forget something so basic, Clara? Emily would never be so careless. Beatrice's voice sliced through the kitchen, so sharp it made me pause, spoon hovering above the bubbling pot. I tightened my grip, knuckles white around the handle, fighting the urge to flinch. The kitchen fan kept up its relentless whir, but it couldn't drown out Beatrice's disappointment, which seemed to fill the room even more than the scent of simmering broth and thyme. I'm Clara Mason, 32 years old, nurse by profession, but for the past 3 weeks, I've been something else entirely. Beatrice's live-in caregiver, her shadow, her scapegoat. It started after the surgery, her hip replacement, a routine ordeal made monumental by her stubbornness and pride. I stepped in, rearranging my life to fill the gaps. Hospital shifts shuffled, dinners canceled, even Ben's patience tested when I missed our anniversary. I kept telling myself I was here because it was the right thing to do, not out of duty, not out of guilt, but hope. Hope that if I stayed long enough, worked hard enough, maybe I could chip away at the wall she'd built between us, the one that always seemed to grow taller whenever Emily entered the picture. But it never changed, no matter how many times I got up in the middle of the night to help Beatrice to the bathroom. No matter how carefully I measured her medications or adjusted her pillows, my efforts faded the instant Emily's name was mentioned. Emily, her golden child, her darling. She floated in for her weekly visit, all charm and cheer, snapping selfies by the bedside and posting them online with captions about quality time with Mom. For those few hours, Beatrice was radiant, basking in Emily's glow, while I became invisible, a background prop in their staged reunion. Beatrice's words, careless, hung in the air, heavy and lingering. I swallowed, throat parched, unable to say anything that wouldn't sound defensive or small. She turned away, clattering teacups on the table, her disappointment settling over the kitchen like a dense morning fog. I felt it seep into my skin, cold and clinging, even as I tried to focus on the soup. I'd poured all the comfort I could muster into that pot. Onions, garlic, fresh herbs, just enough salt. But apparently, not enough to please Beatrice, who measured love in teaspoons and teaspoons alone. Emily was late, as usual, for her fleeting appearance. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was always late, always breezing in at the last minute, but somehow always managed to be perfectly on time for Beatrice's praise. It was as if her absence only magnified her presence, making everything I did seem smaller, less worthy by comparison. I'd spent the last 3 weeks in a haze of exhaustion, running on caffeine and determination. But still, my efforts were invisible. The only thing that seemed to matter was the myth of Emily, the perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong. I stirred the soup, hands trembling, trying to swallow the anger rising in my chest. It wasn't just Beatrice's constant criticism. It was the way Emily made everything look effortless, as if compassion and care were accessories you could put on and take off at will. She knew all the right things to say, all the right moments to capture. She played the part so well that Beatrice never noticed the difference between performance and reality. And I, always the practical one, always the reliable one, was left holding the spoon, my own feelings simmering dangerously close to the surface. Just then the front door creaked open. Emily entered with her usual flair, heels clicking, a bouquet of bright tulips in one hand, her phone already poised in the other. She smiled at me, a little too wide, as if she'd just remembered my name. "How's my favorite patient?" she sang, gliding across the floor to kiss Beatrice's cheek. Instantly, Beatrice transformed, her whole face softening, all previous irritation with me vanishing as if it had never existed. "Emily, sweetheart, you're just in time," Beatrice gushed, her voice warm for the first time all day. I was telling Clara how important it is to pay attention to the little things, not that she gets it. Her eyes flicked to me, sharp as broken glass. Emily laughed, setting the flowers on the counter. "Oh, Mom, I'm sure Clara's doing her best," she said, her tone syrupy sweet. She turned to me, that same look of practiced concern. "It's not easy taking care of you. I've been learning that myself." I bit down on my tongue, jaw so tight it ached. I could almost see the next move. Emily would slide in beside Beatrice, phone at the ready, coax out a smile and snap a photo for her followers. She always knew how to capture just the right angle, how to make her brief visits look like acts of endless devotion. And Beatrice? She drank it in, as if these curated moments were more real than the hours I spent tending to her needs, comforting her through the pain, sitting with her in the silent, sleepless dark. "It's so nice to have both my girls here," Beatrice said, her gaze lingering on Emily. "Although I have to say, Emily always knows how to make me feel special." Special. The word stung. I wanted to scream about the nights I'd spent awake, the sacrifices I'd made, the quiet ways I tried to show up for her when no one else was around. But all Beatrice saw was Emily, the daughter who knew how to shine in the spotlight, who made love look easy and effortless. Emily slipped into her role with practiced ease, phone up, camera flashing. "Just want to capture these precious moments," she chirped, as if it were her right to claim them. She barely glanced at me, fingers flying over her screen, filtering the image until it glowed. Meanwhile, I stood by the stove, invisible once again, my anger thick and hot. The kitchen felt smaller, the air heavy with unspoken words. I thought of all the times Emily had promised to help, to show up, to be present, and how those promises always faded into excuses. Work was busy. Life was hectic. But she'd always make time for a quick visit and a photo op, enough to keep up appearances. "Mom," Emily said, breezing on, "I was thinking of bringing you that herbal tea you love next week. You know, from that little shop downtown. Work's just been crazy, but I'll make time." Beatrice beamed, her face alight with pride. "You're always so thoughtful, Emily, always thinking of me." That was the last straw. I couldn't keep quiet. "Thoughtful?" I snapped, voice sharp, echoing off the tile. Both of them turned, surprise flickering in Beatrice's eyes, something colder in Emily's. "She drops by once a week, takes a few photos, then disappears. I've been here every single day, doing everything I can to make sure you're comfortable." Emily's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened, a flash of challenge beneath the practiced warmth. She knew exactly what she was doing, knew how to remain untouchable, no matter what I said. The silence that followed was thick, stretching between us, filled with all the things I wanted to say and never could. I stood there, ladle in hand, realizing that maybe nothing I did would ever be enough. Not for Beatrice. Not while Emily could turn love into a spectacle and always walk away with the applause. Clara kept her voice cool and steady, but I could hear the tightness beneath it. "I didn't realize this was a competition. We're all doing our part in our own way," she added, a little too smoothly, like she was trying to smooth over something sharp. I muttered, a little too loud, "Some more than others," and turned back to the stove, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Immediately, I felt the air in the kitchen shift, conversation stilled, tension rising like steam from the pot. I wasn't about to let Clara get away with that patronizing tone, that subtle, practiced way she had of reminding us we were all supposed to be grateful for her efforts. But as soon as I said it, regret curled in my stomach, even if I was right. I hated letting my feelings spill over like that, hated the way my voice betrayed me. I didn't want to be the kind of person who kept score and tallied up invisible points, even though it felt like everyone else did. Later that night, the house was quiet. Too quiet, with only the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant rumble of passing trucks to break the silence. I slipped into the guest room and shut the door softly behind me, the old brass knob cool in my palm. I sat down on the edge of the bed, exhaustion pulling at my bones, my phone already in my hand before I even registered dialing Ben's number. He picked up after 2 rings, his voice warm, familiar, but tinged with distraction. "Hey, everything okay?" "No." The word tumbled out, unfiltered, more raw than I intended. "I'm exhausted, Ben. I've been doing everything for your mom, everything, and she doesn't even notice." Emily breezes in for 10 minutes, brings flowers and that shiny, practiced smile, and suddenly she's the perfect daughter. It's like nothing I do ever counts. Ben let out a heavy sigh, and the static on the line made it sound even heavier, like he was carrying the weight of it with me. "Clara, you know how my mom is. She's always been like this, even when I was a kid. She has a way of seeing what she wants to see. Don't take it personally, please." "I know she's like this," I snapped, sharper than I meant to. I could hear the edge in my own voice, and it surprised me, but that doesn't make it easier. Do you have any idea what it's like being here every day and still feeling invisible? Like I'm just a shadow in the corner, doing the work and never being seen. My voice caught, and I pressed my free hand to my chest, trying to keep it together. I just needed you to understand, Ben. I needed someone to see me. He softened, his voice gentler, more present. Clara, maybe it's time to take a break. You've done everything, honestly. Why don't you come home for a week? Let Emily step up for once. I miss you. I know this is hard, and I hate that you're doing it alone. You need to take care of yourself, too. His words caught me off guard. Something in my chest loosened, and the idea of home, our small sunlit apartment, my own pillow, Ben's arms, flooded me with longing so sharp it was almost painful. I could almost smell the coffee brewing in our kitchen, hear the creak of our old floorboards. But then I pictured Beatrice, frail and stubborn, sitting in her chair with her lips pressed into that thin, unsmiling line, and the familiar knot of guilt formed in my gut all over again. I don't know, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. What if she needs me? What if something happens and I'm not here? She'll manage, Ben replied, his words steady and certain. You've been more than generous, Clara. You've done far more than anyone could expect. It's okay to step back. You're not a bad person for wanting to put yourself first. You've earned that. Ben and I lived 2 hours away, in a cramped apartment that we'd filled with our own memories. Paintings from street fairs, mismatched mugs, the scent of basil from the potted plant on the windowsill. When Beatrice's surgery came up, I was the one who offered to move in and help, even though I knew what I was signing up for. Ben wanted to be here too. He adored his mom, quirks and all. But his job was in crisis and he couldn't risk taking time off. He called every day, always asking about her, always asking how I was holding up, always sounding a little helpless, like he wished he could split himself in two. I missed him more than I could say, but I couldn't blame him. He was doing what he could, just like I was. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, seeking comfort in his voice. I don't know, Ben. It's not that I don't want to come home, I do. I miss you and I'm wiped out, but I can't just leave her like this. She still needs someone to look after her, even if she doesn't want to admit it. There was a pause, one of those long, thoughtful silences where I could almost hear him thinking, searching for the right words. Then he said, gentle and calm, I get it, Clara. You care about her even if she doesn't always show it. That's what makes you who you are. Just think about it, okay? You've done so much. It's not selfish to look after yourself, too. You matter. I'll think about it, I whispered, my throat tight, my eyes prickling with unshed tears. Promise. It felt true, even though the idea of actually stepping away seemed impossible. The guilt was a living thing inside me, but I clung to Ben's words, letting them soothe the raw edges. The next morning, sunlight crept through the blinds, painting pale stripes on the floor. I padded down the hall, bracing myself, and found Beatrice sitting upright in her chair, her posture rigid, the TV humming softly with the morning weather. She didn't look up when I entered, her gaze fixed on the gray-blue swirl of clouds on screen. I hesitated in the doorway, wondering if I should say good morning, if I should try to clear the air after last night. But before I could speak, she turned to me, her expression already set in lines of annoyance. Clara, she said, her tone clipped. I couldn't help but notice how late dinner was last night. It's not good for my digestion to eat that late, you know. I told you before. My doctor is very clear about mealtimes. I blinked, caught off guard by the accusation. Dinner was ready as soon as Emily left. I thought we agreed. Yes, because you didn't have it prepared earlier, she interrupted, her words sharp as broken glass. When Emily's here, everything feels more put together. She doesn't need to be told what to do, she just knows. I felt a flare of anger, but I pressed my hands together, desperate not to let it show. Emily stayed for less than an hour, I said, keeping my voice as even as I could. She didn't even stay for dinner. She just dropped off the flowers, said hello, and left. That's not the point, Beatrice snapped, leaning forward, her eyes hard and accusing. Emily knows how to handle herself. She doesn't wait for me to tell her when or how to do things. She's considerate. She sees what needs doing and she just does it. I let out a long, trembling breath, struggling to keep my temper in check. I've been here every day, Beatrice. I've done everything I can to make sure you're comfortable. I've cooked, cleaned, managed your medication, sat with you at every appointment. And yet it always feels like a struggle, like nothing I do is ever quite enough. She shot me a look so cold it made my heart contract. You're here physically, Clara, but emotionally you're checked out. You don't seem like you actually want to be here. I noticed these things. Her words hit me with more force than I expected, knocking the air out of me. My chest tightened, a sharp ache blooming under my sternum. I opened my mouth, searching for something that would defend me, something that would make her see. That's not fair, I managed, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. But the truth was, I wasn't sure she'd ever see me. Not really. And for the first time, I wondered how much longer I could keep trying. My voice trembled despite my efforts to keep it even. My hands clenched at my sides. I've put everything on pause to be here for you. She interrupted me, her voice dripping with sarcasm so sharp it felt like a slap. Oh, how selfless. If it's such a hardship, Clara, maybe you should have let Emily take over. She's busy, sure, but at least she doesn't act like I'm an inconvenience. She said the words with a dismissive flick of her hand, eyes already drifting back to the television, as if I were an unwanted commercial break. I stood there, my mouth half open, searching for words that wouldn't come. The familiar ache of hurt and frustration coiled inside my chest, constricting until I could barely breathe. I knew if I retaliated, if I tried to explain, it would only escalate. So I straightened my back, searching for any scrap of dignity. My voice came out quieter than I intended, but it didn't shake. I'm doing the best I can, Beatrice. I'm sorry if that's not enough for you. She just waved me off, as if swatting away a fly. Your best isn't what I need, Clara. Emily actually gets me in ways you just don't. You never have. Her words settled over the room like a smothering blanket, thick and inescapable. It was as if every ounce of oxygen had been sucked away, leaving only the bitter taste of rejection. I didn't trust myself to speak again, so I left, feet carrying me out of the suffocating living room and down the hall to the guest room. Once inside, I closed the door softly behind me and leaned back against it, pressing my palms flat against the wood as if to ground myself. My eyes stung, but I refused to let the tears fall. Not here. Not where she could see them and think she'd won. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the neat stacks of folded clothes waiting in my suitcase. It felt so pointless, all this careful order, when my thoughts were in chaos. I replayed Beatrice's words over and over, each syllable a fresh wound. I couldn't understand why nothing I did ever seemed to reach her, why every gesture was met with coldness or derision. I had always believed that if I tried hard enough, if I loved her enough, I'd eventually break through. But now, sitting in this borrowed room with my life in pieces, I began to see the truth. With shaking hands, I reached for my phone, desperate for some reminder that there was a world beyond these walls. Ben's last message blinked up at me. You've done enough, Clara. Please come home. I must have read it a dozen times, but now the words resonated with a new weight. I thought of how many evenings I'd spent here, sacrificing my own peace, my own happiness, all in the hope that something would change, that I'd be seen, appreciated, maybe even loved. But Beatrice's praise was always reserved for Emily, the golden child who breezed in and out, never staying long enough to know the cost. I wiped fiercely at the tears threatening to spill, my throat tight. This wasn't giving up, I realized. It was something else entirely, the moment I recognized my own limits. I could no longer keep pouring myself out for someone who saw only my faults, never my efforts. I had to stop waiting for Beatrice's approval, for some sign that my presence mattered. For the first time, I considered what it might mean to choose myself. That afternoon, as the pale winter light slanted through the kitchen window, I found Beatrice sitting at the table, her attention fixed on a crossword. The silence between us felt brittle, charged with years of grievances left unspoken. My heart pounded, but I made myself step forward. Beatrice, I said quietly, I need to talk to you. She didn't look up right away, only stirred her coffee. If this is about dinner, I'd appreciate you spending less time talking and more time getting it right. I clenched my jaw, fighting down the old impulse to apologize. It's not about dinner, it's about everything since I arrived. She finally looked at me, her brows arching in exaggerated surprise. Everything? That sounds dramatic, Clara. Go on then. How have I treated you? I drew a deep breath, letting the words tumble out before I could lose my nerve. I've been here every day, putting my own life aside to take care of you. I've missed work, missed friends, missed time with Ben, because you said you needed me. I've tried so hard to make things easier, to be what you wanted. But it's never enough. You make it clear every single day that you don't value what I do, or who I am, and I just can't keep doing this, Beatrice. I can't keep letting you make me feel like I'm nothing. She set her coffee down with a sharp clink, her expression hardening. If you're so exhausted, Clara, no one's forcing you to stay. Emily would do a far better job. She always has. Her words hit harder than I expected, but this time I refused to let them sink in. I kept my voice steady. Emily isn't here, Beatrice. She never stays. I'm the one who's actually been here, day in and day out. But if you think she'll do better, then fine. I'm done. She didn't react, not a flicker of remorse or regret. Just an icy stare. Good. I won't miss the constant complaints. At least Emily knows how to treat her elders. I nodded, the finality of the moment settling over me like a sudden cold front. I hope she gives you what you need, I said softly, because I won't be coming back. I walked away, my steps firm, my heart bruised but resolute. For the first time in months, I felt a strange sense of freedom, as if a heavy chain had loosened around my chest. Back in the guest room, I began to pack in earnest. Each shirt, every pair of socks felt lighter than before, as if with every item I folded, I was reclaiming a piece of myself. I could still hear Beatrice's cutting words, but I let them drift past me, refusing to let them take root. I thought about all the times I'd twisted myself into knots for her approval, sacrificing bits of myself for scraps of gratitude that never came. When my suitcase was zipped, I sat on the bed, phone in hand, staring at Emily's name in my contacts. I hesitated, bracing myself, then pressed call. The rings felt endless, but finally she answered, her tone brisk and impatient. What is it, Clara? I'm in the middle of something. I gripped the phone tighter, steadying my voice. I'm leaving, Emily. My bags are packed and I'm heading home. Beatrice needs someone, so now it's your turn. There was a stunned pause, then her voice rose, sharp and incredulous. You can't just walk out, Clara. You know how hard it is to rearrange everything. I can, and I am, I said, more certain than I'd ever been. I've done everything I could. It's time for you to step up. Even as Emily sputtered on the other end, I felt a strange peace settle over me. I realized finally that stepping away wasn't a failure. It was an act of self-preservation, and maybe even self-respect. For too long, I'd let myself be ground down by someone who would never see me. Now, I was choosing to see myself, to value my own worth. I hung up, grabbed my suitcase, and as I walked out the front door for the last time, I left behind not just a house, but the impossible task of earning love that was never freely given. I let out a laugh. Not the kind you share over a joke, but the hollow, incredulous sound that escapes when reality presses in on you too hard. It wasn't funny. It was almost tragic, how predictable this all was. Oh, sure, just pile everything on me, like always. Did she have any idea how much I'd already given up? Did any of them see it? I could barely remember the last time I'd slept through the night, the last time I'd taken a breath that didn't feel heavy. I couldn't just drop everything. I'd been living out of a suitcase in that old house for weeks. I could feel my patience start to fray, but my voice stayed even as I cut her off. You've had plenty of time to prepare for this. Mom's your responsibility too, you know. She's always said she thinks you're better at this than I am anyway. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Emily's response was a shriek, shrill and panicked, her composure unraveling. Are you kidding me? I don't have time to babysit her. That's your thing, Clara. You're the caretaker, not me. Not anymore. Her voice cracked on the last word, but I didn't let it sway me. I felt something inside me harden, a chill settling in my chest as I replied. Good luck, Emily. I didn't wait for her to protest or plead. I hung up, letting the silence cut through whatever she might have said next. My breath shook as I exhaled, the weight of everything pressing down but somehow making me lighter. I grabbed my suitcase, already packed, always half-packed, and headed for the door. No explanations, no apologies. For once I was choosing myself. The days after I left felt strange, liberating but haunted by a constant flicker of guilt. It was almost impossible not to wonder what was happening back at Beatrice's place. but I forced myself to focus on each mundane task: making coffee, folding laundry, standing in the sun. I'd spent so long being a shadow in someone else's home that I'd forgotten how stillness felt. But even as I tried to build a little peace, anxiety lingered, curling in the corners of my mind. 4 days crawled by. On the evening of the 4th, as I was settling in with a book I'd barely managed to read, my phone buzzed. Beatrice's name flashed on the screen. My heart stuttered. Part of me wanted to let it ring out, to pretend I didn't see it. But curiosity, and if I was honest, a pang of responsibility, overpowered my resolve. I answered. "Hello?" I kept my voice careful, wary. "Clara." Beatrice's voice was thin, frail in a way I'd never heard before. She sounded exhausted, almost broken. The proud, biting woman I'd known all my life was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I need to talk to you." I hesitated, suppressing the old urge to rush in and fix things. "Is everything okay?" "No." The word was heavy, a stone dropped into deep water. There was frustration there, but also fear. "Emily hasn't been here since you left. She barely answers my calls, and when she does, she always has some excuse. Work, meetings, anything but being here. She promised me she'd be here. She swore it." I bit my lip, the urge to say "I told you so" almost overwhelming. But what would that accomplish? I let her keep talking, her voice trembling. "I've had to do everything myself," Beatrice continued, a trace of panic in her words. "Some days I can't even get up the stairs. I don't know what to do, Clara. I feel completely abandoned." Her words landed harder than I expected. I'd been waiting for this moment for so long, for her to finally understand what it felt like to be left behind, to be invisible. But instead of satisfaction, I felt a confusing swirl of sympathy, vindication, and that old, bitter ache. For years she'd acted like I didn't matter, like I was just background noise. Now she was finally tasting what she'd served me all my life. "I'm sorry to hear that, Beatrice," I said, choosing my words carefully, keeping my voice neutral. "But I did warn you. Emily's good at making promises, but following through has never been her strong suit." There was a long silence, the distance between us stretching out across the phone line. When Beatrice spoke again, her tone had softened, her anger replaced by something like disbelief. I didn't think she'd just leave me like this. I thought she cared. I really did. I stayed quiet, resisting the temptation to twist the knife. She was finally seeing the consequences of her choices, the cost of her favoritism. I felt it all. The old resentment, the flicker of pity, the exhaustion of always being the one who shows up. I clutched the phone, grounding myself. "I'm sorry you're going through this, Beatrice. I wouldn't wish that kind of loneliness on anyone, but I can't just come back, not right now." "What do you mean, not right now?" Her tone sharpened, the old edge returning. "I mean, I can't just drop my life again and move back in," I said, my words steady but aching. "You treated me like I was nothing when I was there. I gave everything, and you made me feel invisible. I can't put myself through that again, not after everything." She didn't hesitate. "So now you're just going to hold a grudge? You think you're perfect, Clara? You think I didn't see the mistakes you made? Don't act like some kind of martyr. You've never been good enough for this family, and now you're proving it." Her words hit like cold water, but I kept my voice calm. "I'm not perfect. I never claimed to be, but I tried. I gave everything I had, and you never even saw it. Now, after everything that's happened, you expect me to come back as if none of it matters?" She laughed, a bitter, cutting sound. "I should have known. You're just like the rest, selfish. At least Emily would never abandon me like this." "Emily already has," I said softly, letting the truth hang in the air. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Then her fury returned, burning even brighter. "Don't you dare talk about Emily like that. She has her reasons, unlike you. Always looking for an excuse to quit, to run away." Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I'd shed enough for this family. I'm sorry you feel that way, Beatrice, but I can't come back. Not now. Not like this." I ended the call before her anger could reach me again, my hands trembling as I set the phone down. The heaviness of her words lingered, but beneath it, relief began to grow. I couldn't save her from herself, or from the consequences of her choices. 5 days passed. I tried to settle into a routine, to let the anger and sorrow drain away. I filled my days with long walks, letting the quiet and the sunlight patch over the raw places inside me. In the evenings, I sat with Ben, grateful for his steady presence, for the way he listened without trying to fix anything. Slowly, some sense of peace began to return, fragile but real. A life that belonged to me, not just to other people's needs. Then, late one evening, my phone buzzed again. I almost didn't look, but the name on the screen drew me in. Beatrice. I stared at it, my thumb hovering. Maybe she'd called just to vent more anger, to demand something else from me. Maybe this was another plea I couldn't answer, but still I answered. Hello? This time her voice was different, cracked, full of tears, stripped raw. Clara. She broke down, sobs racking her words. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. I've been sitting here thinking about everything. About how I treated you, what I expected from you, and how unfair I've been. I didn't want to see it before, but now I can't avoid it. I'm sorry, Clara. I'm so sorry. Her apology, unsteady and unpracticed, left me speechless. For a long moment, I just listened to her cry, to the sound of her regret echoing through the phone. I realized, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't alone in my hurt. We were both struggling under the weight of old wounds, both trying to find our way back from them. And in that moment, I felt something shift, a loosening, a possibility. Maybe this was the start of something new, or maybe it was just another chapter in our complicated story. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could both find a way forward. I sat back, barely able to process what I was hearing. Beatrice's voice trembled with emotion, each word raw and unguarded. I can't believe how awful I was to you. You didn't deserve any of it. Honestly, I don't even know why I acted like that. You gave so much, and I just threw it back in your face. My mouth opened, ready to respond. But she pressed on, desperate to get the words out before her courage failed her. No, let me finish, she pleaded, her voice cracking under the weight of her confession. I've been so unfair to you, Clara. Blind, really. You didn't have to come here, but you did. When everyone else gave up, you stayed. You took care of me when no one else would, and I treated you terribly. Her sobs grew harsher, each one tugging at something deep inside me. I regret it so much, she managed, her voice almost drowned by her crying. Emily hasn't even visited in days, and now I finally understand. I see what you were trying to tell me, what you meant all along. I need you to know how sorry I am. I didn't deserve your kindness, but you gave it anyway. Tears pricked at my eyes, blurring the room around me. Her words cut through the pain and resentment I'd been holding on to, slicing through the walls I'd built for self-protection. I took a shaky breath, feeling the old hurt loosening its grip. Thank you, Beatrice, I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. That means more than you know. I needed to hear it. She let out a trembling sigh, her bravado slipping away. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said softly, her voice splintered with guilt. But I had to tell you, I'm so sorry for everything. I sat there in silence, letting the echo of her apology settle between us. For so long, I'd wondered if she'd ever acknowledge what had happened, if our relationship could ever be more than a duty, a history of hurt. Now, for the first time, I felt the possibility of something new. I'll need time, I said finally, my tone gentle but firm. I wanted her to know I wasn't dismissing my own pain, but I also wanted her to feel hope. But I appreciate your apology. It's a start, Beatrice. It is, she agreed, her crying slowing, hope flickering in her voice. I'll try to do better, Clara, I promise. I want to be different. I want to be someone you can trust and rely on, not someone who hurts you. When the call ended, I placed the phone on the table, my hands still shaking. My heart felt both heavy and strangely lighter, as if a weight I'd carried for too long was slowly beginning to lift. There was grief, certainly, for the years lost, for the kindness unacknowledged. But there was also a glimmer of relief, and even anticipation. For the first time, I could imagine a way forward, even if it would take patience and time. After Beatrice's recovery, everything between us shifted. She began to treat me with a tenderness I'd never seen from her before, her gratitude woven into every action and word. The sharpness that once defined her faded, replaced by a genuine warmth that made our time together feel almost new. Each visit became easier, lighter, no longer a chore or a battlefield, but a chance for real connection. Beatrice went out of her way to show her appreciation, whether it was a quiet thank you, a thoughtful gesture, or simply the softness in her eyes when she looked at me. The past wasn't erased, but it no longer anchored us in bitterness. Instead, it became something we could acknowledge and learn from, rather than something that defined us. Slowly, I began to feel truly valued, seen not just for what I did, but for who I was. That recognition healed something inside me I hadn't realized was broken. Our relationship wasn't perfect. Old wounds don't disappear overnight. But kindness became the foundation we rebuilt on. Trust grew in small, everyday moments. A shared laugh, a lingering hug, the comfort of knowing I mattered to her now. And as the walls between us fell away, I discovered a sense of peace I'd almost given up on. For the first time, I felt hopeful, not just about Beatrice, but about myself and what lay ahead. That changed everything.